Hello, everyone. As you can see, we're having a little fun here. Jenny and I have been talking about Scorpio season, and given the fact that we both have a lot of Leo in our charts, we got talking about Halloween, and I don't even know what happened, but here we are. Look at us. This is absolutely ridiculous. But we are going to try to talk a little bit about Scorpio season while we are in our little quick
Yeah.
costumes. Jenny, you look great. You look absolutely awesome.
Thanks.
So, what we're here to talk about, besides Halloween, is Scorpio season itself. This is a really interesting season that we're heading into. I'm having a hard time being serious, but we're gonna just work with this.
Sure.
Okay. We probably will lose all our followers. At any rate, welcome. Thank you for being here. The thing about Scorpio season, one thing to think about is that this is the midpoint of the season of autumn. You know, each season, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, has 3 signs. And Scorpio is the middle of the autumn season. It is we think about Halloween a lot. We think about Samhain. Samhain is actually the midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
right.
Say more about that, Jenny, and I'll put my sunglasses back on so I can look as cool as you do.
Yeah. I got my other glasses on underneath. Yeah, well, I mean, this Scorpio season is really just in some ways very straightforwardly about Scorpio, and Scorpio is the fixed water sign. And again, so the fixed part refers to it being the middle of the season, just like you're saying, Laurie. And yeah, it's super hard to be really serious and talk about this. But anyway, that is what you're going to want to think about. Like there's a fixed nature to Scorpio. It's very steadfast, and it kind of wants to stay in the same place. So we're going to talk more about that. But that's just what we're going to be discussing in a nutshell. So, all right.
You want to open up the chart, or I don't know how to do this. I think I'm going to have to take this stuff off.
Yeah, I think we should pause.
And come back as our normal selves.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
We are going to do that.
Set that up.
Okay, pause.
All right, everybody. It's us, and we've settled down now, and we've become our normal, boring selves. So here we are. And speaking of ourselves, we are Astropath. Laurie is from Astrolore, and I believe you're doing lauriefarrington.com for your website these days. You can find her there, and there's a lot of links to all of her stuff if you check the notes. And I'm Jenny Date from Hidden Path Astrology at hiddenpathastrology.com. So do check out all of our links underneath, like us, comment, etc. We have been super appreciating the comments some of you have left. Thank you very, very much. Keep it coming. And as we mentioned before, or the people that were here on the video before, we are in Scorpio season, or just about to be. So Laurie, do you want to kind of kick us off with a little more about Scorpio season?
Well, before we get to that, I want to remind people, Jenny does a meditation for each season. So I assume yours for Scorpio season is up on your website by the time people are hearing this.
Yes, it'll be connected to my blog and then also on my meditation page. So yeah, thanks, Laurie, for plugging that.
Yep, I want to plug that. And I also want to plug the fact that on Etsy, you can find a workbook to kind of work through the season with your own chart. There'll be a link below for that as well. And if you follow me on Patreon, you actually get that free along with the monthly new moon workbook. So just to kind of plug those little things as well. And then in terms of Scorpio season, I think we talked a little bit when we were all in our little playful state there earlier about Scorpio season, Halloween, Samhain, this being the middle of the season of autumn. So we are in that fixed time where we are. This is really, it's interesting. Scorpio season, I think of it as such a preparation time. We have to kind of put things in place to prepare for the colder months ahead. Are we ready to open up the the chart, or?
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what Scorpio itself means. I mean, Scorpio kind of has that reputation of being super mysterious and, like kind of, some people think it's like underhanded and secretive, and certainly it can have some of those traits. I mean, it really refers to, I always think about Scorpio as referring to those deeper, more hidden emotions, and the reality that before we had any other part of the brain, we had the limbic brain, which is the emotions. So it really kind of takes us back into those deeper, more primal parts of our psychology. And I think it's it can be a very fruitful time for just sort of embracing those parts of ourselves that we can't necessarily see. And I just love how Halloween is always in the middle of Scorpio season. And so Halloween kind of gives you that whole just imagery around, the skeleton and like the creepy, mysterious, like hidden aspects. And the idea of dressing up as someone else is bringing out some of those more mysterious components of ourselves and going ahead and putting them on display. I mean, I love that kind of reversal of what Halloween reflects, of bringing the deep inner stuff to the surface and putting it right on display. So we're going to talk more about Halloween, but those are some of the things I think about.
Yeah, Scorpio it's the fixed water sign. It really pushes us to the deepest levels of who we are and how we, the transformation of what's deep and scary inside of us. You think of, people always think about the symbol of Scorpio being the scorpion that stings and kills. And, people get all kind of strange about Scorpio. It's kind of a strange sign, but it's really, I like, when I think about a symbol for Scorpio like that, I think about the phoenix, which really is, you think about that mythical bird that comes forth after it has dove down into the depths, the scariest depths. And then it comes out transformed into this beautiful mythical bird. And, in order to transform our lives and ourselves, in order for true alchemy of the self, we have to explore those deepest, scariest parts of us. And this time of year, this season really asks us to look at what is usually easier to avoid. But there's something about this season that just puts these things right in our pathway of our vision. And you think about little children, little tiny children suddenly exposed to Halloween. You think about little children and the parents are always trying to protect them and keep everything safe and pretty. But then Halloween comes and they bring them out, and all of a sudden these little kids are, faced with things that are scary and dark. And what happens within our psyche when we see these things that scare us? We need to look at them and allow transformations to occur. So yeah, wherever Scorpio is in our individual chart is a place that has to, over the course of our lifetime, be approached with that perspective of looking at the dark and going through it, facing what's difficult and allowing it to transform. You can think as well of the richest parts of us are under that, the compost.
Yeah, everything you're saying, Laurie, it's like just such a good reminder of, in the northern hemisphere, we're in the autumn. So when you look around, you're seeing leaves coming down off the trees. You're seeing things as they're dying and coming off, those trees, and you see, that the light's going to be retracting more and more. We're coming into this darker time. And so those are all things that, especially in our culture, we're just kind of nervous about. And, we're scared of death, especially in Western culture. But the reality is death is just a part of life. And, you know, I mean, of course, each of us is going to experience our own death at some point. But before we even get to that, as you were saying earlier, like death is a metaphor. It allows you to see the power of being able to let go of things, you know, the power to release the things that are difficult. And so there's something about having to kind of walk with those difficult things and then walk away, you know, at the right time. And there's a real beauty in when you think about each leaf on the tree is going to release at its own time. And it's going to come down and it floats down. And there's this ethereal, mystical feeling about all of that. And we're definitely scared of it. But it really is just a huge part of life. And it brings in the whole idea of like regeneration, the rebirth you already brought up with the phoenix, like, so letting things kind of go to compost and then reemerge, you know. And the other piece that you're making me think of, we talked a little bit about, is this is the time of year when, if you're into plant medicine, this is the time of year the leaves are gone, they start to die and wither, you know, and all of the power goes into the root. So this is the time you start harvesting the roots, because that's where all of the mojo of the plant is now in there, and that's where the medicine is. And it is a wonderful metaphor for understanding how our power and our medicine that we have to offer the world is down in that root. You're like drawing it in, and it kind of brings that fixed water piece of Scorpio where you're drawing that in, and it's just there to regenerate, to, I don't know, to just open up into this whole other power. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love Scorpio season. I think it holds so much power of change and moving forward and letting go. It's a powerful time. I think that, you know, during this season, we really need to embrace these issues. We need to embrace it seems kind of strange, and I know I've had friends look at me kind of askance when I say this, but I think there's a real value in practicing our own death. And this is a great time of year to take on that kind of a practice. Like you said, we're all going to die. And, you know, pretending we're not, ignoring that fact is not helpful in our lives. No. If we can really, you know, think about it and practice letting go. You know, I think one of the things that's so scary about death for people is because every letting go in our life is difficult. You know, we let go of a relationship, we let go of a parent, we let go of, you know, whatever, something beloved we have to let go of. It's not easy. And when we approach our death, we realize that what we're letting go of is everything, everybody, everything. And yeah, there's a fear in that, but there's also a freedom in that. And I you know, I'm just going to say this. I'll never forget when my mom died. The thing that she said to me when she called me on the phone to tell me she was dying, I remember asking her, like, you know, what does that feel like to know that? And she laughed and she said, my God, it's a relief.
Wow.
She said, I don't have to worry about, you know, whatever the future. I don't have to worry about the future anymore. And I think that there's just such a freedom and a power in that. So, you know, kind of embracing fear as you get underneath that fear, and that's what's there is freedom.
Yeah. Oh, I thank you for sharing that story. I think it's really powerful to hear, you know, that firsthand experience. That, I don't know. Thank you. That's really great.
My mother taught me a lot in her last, you know, she was diagnosed and she was gone 6 weeks later. And I learned more from her in that 6 weeks than I did in the previous however many years. But yeah, it's a powerful thing to contemplate. And yeah, like you said, you go out for a drive right now, there's leaves all over the floor, all over the roadway, blowing around. You can't help but think about the ending of cycles.
Yeah. And what you bring in that personal story, and it's like, and then saying in those 6 weeks what you learned. I mean, this is exactly what we're trying to convey in the Scorpio season, the concentrated power of
Yeah.
what comes out when you know you have to let go of something, or when you're facing your end, or when you're facing the end of, as you said, a relationship, or even like the little tiny deaths of like the disappointment, the disappointment that happens in life, just inevitable. It's okay. And it's inevitable. And it's just part of what we're all working with. And Scorpio is that rich material that is down in those darker regions. So, I mean, I think this is hopefully we've kind of let you kind of see the different things that Scorpio relates to. And I think, are you ready to open up that chart? Because I think
Absolutely.
let's plant this more in a astrology territory, which let's just start by saying that Mars is the planetary ruler, the ancient ruler of Scorpio. So, here we are. So what? Yeah. So the
Yes.
keynote of the season, Mars is the focus, is the keynote, because it's in its own sign of Scorpio, and it's in Scorpio the whole time, and it's kind of combined with the Sun and Mercury in Scorpio, and so all three of those planets have multiple contacts throughout the season with the outer planets. So let's start with that. Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to go like kind of week by week here in exploring this?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Like you said, I think the main thing that really distinguishes this Scorpio season from many other Scorpio seasons is the fact that Mars, the ruling planet, is right in there. And it just, it just heightens that sense of what Scorpio is.
And I mean, Mars, part of the reason we're bringing it up is because Mars is incredibly powerful in Scorpio. It wants to be there. Mars is a planet that is associated with the night, and the Scorpio is its night version. It also rules Aries, but in Scorpio, it really is very at home, and I do think it is appropriate to think about the Scorpion here, because the Scorpion is kind of suited up for armor. It's got its own weapon, it's got a sting in the tail, and it's got armor, and it's a really important symbol for thinking about that martial energy and how it comes about. I mean, I always just think about the ninja with the martial energy of like this sort of secretive, hidden underground power, and then it has this, ability to cut. And so the kind of the cautionary tale here is around knowing the precision cutting energy that is available to you during the season, and then using it wisely, like knowing where you want to work with it, especially because we've just come off Libra season with a huge focus on your relationships and what you need to shift, about your habits. So now we're moving into this season. It's like, okay, well, what happened then? And then where do you need to be precise and very aware of the power that you're wielding, the separating power. So
yeah, and really taking on that responsibility of taking action. It's interesting that Scorpio, we think about that secretiveness, and I just there's secretiveness, but then there's also privacy. And I just want people to think about the difference between those two things. Holding secrets is one thing, but holding your own counsel and holding your own privacy and, kind of understanding the difference within yourself. Are you holding something away from somebody else so that you can get away with something? That's not a great thing. But if you're holding your own counsel and your own privacy, that's a fine way to use Scorpio.
Yeah, that's a good point, because any of you who've experienced in your life some secrets, which many of us have, the power those secrets hold, and they hold the power because they're secret. Once they come out, things might change and things might shift, but that power over is gone, is dispersed, because now it's in the light. So that's a great analogy. And I love that you brought in privacy, because the privacy, people with Scorpio have intense need for privacy. And it's important. And so you may come up against that in your relationships with people who have Scorpio, or maybe you have Scorpio. prominent in your chart, but that might be something like that you bump up against, and that part of the relationship is going to be learning how to respect that privacy,
Exactly.
yourself and others.
Exactly that. If you're in relationship with someone with a strong Scorpio, trying to force them to not have secrets, you have to really understand their need for privacy, and respecting that is you got to have the trust to be able to respect it. At any rate, we could go down a hell of a rabbit hole with that conversation, I'm sure.
It just brings up the other piece that we will talk about more in the impacts, but is the vulnerability. There's a vulnerability here with Scorpio. There's a deep emotional vulnerability. And so there is a need for protection. And so when I brought up kind of the martial stuff in the beginning, well, when you apply that to psychology, it's about, discerning where you're vulnerable and where you need to protect and where you need to have your privacy, and then where you need to let go and open up because you're holding a secret. That's kind of, I like that you brought that into the conversation, Laurie, because it really gives you a psychological context to think about in this Scorpio season. So yeah.
Okay.
Week by week?
Let's do a week by week. Okay. On the 23rd is when the sun enters Scorpio, and it does so at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Adjust to your time zone. And in that first week, what do we have going on in that first week, Jenny? What do you see?
Well, the sun immediately trines Saturn. So that's kind of right off on the next day, providing some stability to the watery nature of Scorpio. And then not long after that, on the 28th, we have our lunar eclipse. At 5 degrees of Taurus. This is an important eclipse because it's closing down an 18-month cycle. We will make a video about that, so there'll be more information about that. And then the final little keynote of that week is Mercury conjunct Mars. That's on the 29th. And then nothing really happens on the 30th, so our next week begins with Halloween.
And oh boy, what a lovely, lovely, lovely day Halloween brings into us, doesn't it? I love it. On Halloween, we have a sextile being formed between, is that Venus or Mercury? Wait a minute.
It's a trine between Venus and Uranus is the beginning.
Between Venus and Uranus. Okay. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. That's lovely. And this just, what a perfect thing for a Halloween. What an absolutely perfect statement. Go out and show up. This is a celebration.
Yeah, it really brings in the effortless energy of something sudden and unexpected that has to do with your appearance, which is Venus. So yeah, great. It's a great aspect for Halloween, and it kind of sets up that little bit of a grand trine energy that goes on for about a week. And then, because then you have, so continuing on that week, Halloween, the 31st, not till November 3rd do we have another aspect. We have Sun opposed Jupiter and Venus opposes Neptune that day. And then on the 4th, Saturn stations direct.
So, and that's important. Saturn stationing direct is right at 0 degrees of Pisces. And so it's been retrograde. I'm not sure. I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly how long it's been retrograde, but quite a while, a couple of months, maybe 4 months. It's been retrograde in Pisces, and now it stops right at 0 degrees. It does not dip back into Aquarius. It stops and moves forward. So if, the thing that's most important about that in terms of you that we're talking to is look at your chart. Do you have some important personal placement or point near, in the first degree or two of Pisces, of Virgo, of Sagittarius, or Gemini? Because if so, you are really being impacted by that Saturn. So pay attention to that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And then that same day, Mercury opposes Uranus. And I'm just bringing that up because one of the keynotes we haven't super drilled in yet is just this opposition between Scorpio and Taurus, which is very prominent through the whole season, where you have those 3 planets that are in Scorpio are going to ping off both Jupiter and Uranus basically throughout the whole season. So there's a very strong polarity between the Taurus and Scorpio axis. which is very interesting. They're opposite signs. They're both yin. Taurus is earth, Scorpio is water, so there's this interplay of that polarity, which we really want to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's a fascinating polarity, isn't it? I love it. That, you think of Scorpio as just all the intensity and passion and all of that. And then Taurus is just reverence and sensuality and kind of, it's such an interesting counterpoint there.
Like sort of like simplicity to
simplicity.
Scorpio's complexity, and then Scorpio's like, hey, let go, let go, let go. And Taurus is like, hold on, hold on, hold on. So these are some of the
things
themes,
comfortable,
right?
Keep things comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taurus wants comfort. Scorpio wants passion. So, you look in your own chart between these two areas, the area of your chart that holds Scorpio, the area of your chart that holds Taurus, and you know that a lot of what's going on this month is this kind of this pull between simplicity and complexity, between sensuality and sexuality, just these extremes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just always think part of the human condition is hosting these polarities inside ourselves and trying to kind of work with them and work with the two ends of the spectrum. And depending on your own personal chart, will kind of highlight how strong this particular polarity lives in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things to think about. But it also, because we have an eclipse thing here across this axis too, we're thinking about the last 18 months and how we want to close down that cycle, because this Scorpio season is kind of giving us an opportunity to close down that much longer cycle. So think in terms of all of that as we're discussing that polarity. That really is, really again kicks off the first week, strong through the second week here, and then as we move into the third week, the theme continues as well. So let's see. One note about that second week. Daylight saving ends on November 5th. And that kind of cuts off that week. And then we move into week 3, which
starts out with that trine from Venus to Pluto, which kind of ties in that trine, which I guess I drew in a little earlier than we needed it. But, I think that trine is important. There is a stabilizing force here. And because that Venus is in a trine aspect to Pluto and Uranus, which are obviously trining each other, there's some big picture here, some way in which we are able to stabilize our own understanding of the greater world issues.
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning, Laurie, like just how much the cultural issues are really showing up this month, because everything touches in with Pluto and Uranus and Jupiter and, Saturn right at the beginning and Neptune. So, it really sort of indicates, we have our own lives going on, and then we're looking out at everything that's going on in the world right now. And there is a lot going on, right? There's so much. And I can't help it. What is showing up right now is the conflict, the enormous amount of conflict. And you can see how, Scorpio brings your attention to conflict, and this is what we're seeing. So I think what you're alluding to, yes, is, you got your own personal story, and then there's this much bigger story that we all can see and is affecting all of us on a personal level too. So really strong keynote during this whole season.
It really is, right now with all the wars going on everywhere, we have to look at it. We have to look at it. We can't sweep ourselves under the rug.
And again, if we were more emphasizing mundane astrology, we would go into a conversation about this, but we really want to focus on the natal astrology, how this impacts you. So that's kind of why we always direct our focus there. And not that it's not going on, just that we're focusing on the more personal component. So so just to kind of add, to continue on with that third week, Venus moves into Libra. I think that might come as a welcome breath of fresh air on November 8th. Venus quite happy in Libra. It's its own sign. There's only 2 ingresses, and that's one. And then 2 days later, we have the second one, which is Mercury moving into Sagittarius. And interestingly, those are the only 2 planets in yang signs, you know, the more I guess for lack of a better word, the more masculine signs that you have Libra and Sagittarius showing up. And
So
that
the
same
fire
day,
and air, the
yeah,
fire and air signs. Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to all the earth and water that so dominates this season.
Right.
And that is also the day, November 10th, that we have the only square, which is Mercury square Saturn that day. So that's
that's on November 10th, right? Mercury
yeah.
square Saturn. So
Mhm.
you want to pay attention to that one. Mercury squaring Saturn. Just okay. Mercury square Saturn from Sagittarius to Pisces. Okay, so that's after Mercury is down here in
Yeah.
Sagittarius. Okay.
And we're noting that because it's the only square. And
It's the only
squares,
square.
you know, squares are growth, and we need some of that sort of growth and tension in this month because there's so much not of that. So it's going to be, it might be a tough one. It's like serious, it brings in a more serious note to your thinking.
Yeah, I think it really there's something in that to me as I'm looking at it, that it's like, what are you avoiding talking about? You know, what of these big dark issues are you avoiding talking about? Well, here you have an opportunity and actually an insistence with a square to have some conversations that may be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's, one way I would think about that.
That's a good, yeah, we'll delve more into that in the impacts too. So
Right.
that's a good set of keywords there. And then that week finishes out with probably the most intense aspect, which is Mars opposed Uranus. I mean, this just kind of brings all of those issues we're talking about between sort of complexity and simplicity, or, depth and materialism, kind of brings all of these things to the forefront. And interesting, that's Veterans Day too in the US. It's an interesting thought. So something about that is going on. And then we come to our, I don't know if do you want to comment on that aspect or?
It's a pretty intense one. I guess it's a very intense one. I would, look in your own chart between these two houses, the whole Taurus and Scorpio, and think about where during that period of time around November 11th, where you might really hit a wall of resistance or some real difficulty that you kind of have to navigate. Other than that, and if you have planets at, near those points of any of the fixed signs, you're going to want to pay careful attention. As far as otherwise, just mundanely watch the news. That's a tough little aspect there.
And I think it's, as you're talking, it's a call to action.
Yes.
There's some kind of call to action, the wake up call. There's something that you're going to have to act on that comes to your attention. That's how I read it. Again, like you said, depends what you have in your natal chart. That's going to be the people with the biggest impact. So,
right. But if you have planets near 21, 22 degrees of the fixed signs, pay attention.
That's neat. And then we kind of go into our final section here. It's a little more than a week, but on November 13th, we have the new moon in Scorpio. It's at 20 degrees of Scorpio. The same day, we have the sun opposed Uranus. So you're going to get an echo, whatever the theme was the 2 days before that. And then it's like a little bit of astrological quiet, probably some moon aspects. But then you move to November 17th, where both Mars and the sun trine Neptune, which just brings in a much softer something. I don't know, something's dissolving, or something is having to just kind of, the way you thought it was is actually something else. I mean, there's something kind of flowing on in here that maybe washes away whatever direction you thought you were going in,
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a flow of energy from Neptune to these intense planets. So what is Neptune asking, or what is Neptune offering? Because a trine aspect is an offer. It's a gift. It's not an ask. So there's some way in which I would just say those 2 days, November 7th, well, that's both on November 17th, just enjoy a little dreaminess, go watch some movies and
Yeah.
relax a little, enjoy it. Yeah, I like that. I like that that is happening there. And then the 18th, we've got the sun conjunct Mars, which could be a pretty explosive little moment. That is, you know, the beginning of a cycle right in Scorpio of the sun and Mars. So yeah, that could be an explosive time. That's happening at 25 degrees Scorpio. So, you know, again, if you've got planets near 25 degrees of any of the fixed signs, pay attention. Don't start a fight with somebody that day unless you really mean it. You know, you don't want to just stumble into a big problem that could just be managed by going for a run or releasing excess energy in some other way. You don't need to start a battle.
Yeah, there's a mindfulness there. Like I see, yeah, like, you know, the going for the run, a part of it is the clearing out of the mental space so that you can, you know, because the focus is so much on emotions. So it'd be pretty easy to erupt, as you're saying. But consciousness really helps when you know, maybe you know your own chart. So you know if this is landing. I'm like, I know exactly where this is landing in my chart. Whew. So I will be paying attention on that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Always
You
pay
know?
attention. You know, Mars can bring up so much, you know, unexpected, just sudden rage
Yeah.
or anxiety, not anxiety, but yeah, rage or anger or frustration. You know, in Scorpio, it's actually frustration can be a real problem because it comes up in that not only in the physicality of Mars, but the emotion of Scorpio, which that combination can just be such a deep frustration. And you might not explode at somebody else, you might explode internally. So yeah, using physicality to release energy, I think would be very, very helpful for that.
And that's a really good point, Laurie, on that's a great way to deal with the Taurus Scorpio axis, because Taurus is saying, hey, can you manifest that? Can you put that in a physical form? And that's really helpful for Scorpio, because sometimes you just feel like you're swimming in the whirlpool and you're like, oh, you know, so doing something tangible and leaning into the physical part is a great way to work with that polarity on a personal level. So that's really great advice, really, you know, and what's nice is the following couple of days, both Mars and the sun sextile Pluto. So that's a much more gentle aspect and sort of suggests, hey, you know, look at that. You burned off that energy and now you're empowered. You know, it kind of brings in this like empowerment of like, oh, I didn't lose my shit and get super resentful. I, in fact, did this thing I needed to do. And now I've empowered this relationship to another level. I mean, that would be one way it could pan out. So
yeah, there's a real opportunity in that point, the 20th and 21st with those little sextiles. There's just a real a real opportunity to be empowered.
Yeah, like the transformative moment.
Yeah, I like that. That's really nice. And then the 22nd, the sun moves into Sagittarius and we get on to the next stage.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's kind of a summary of the season there, and you'll get more if you skip ahead to your rising sign, which we will work with next.
Right. Okay. So moving right along, we are going to talk about those of you who have Aries rising.
Look at that.
You want to start this one or you want me to?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Aries, okay, so this Scorpio season is happening in your 8th house. This means this deep, powerful, transformative kind of energy is manifesting in your 8th house, which is the place in your life where other people's values and other people's emotional intensity and other people's baggage and other people's money all kind of come at you. I mean, that's what is happening, and you're having to navigate that. I think a lot about the 8th house is like, you know, you started the new relationship and everything was great, and then all of a sudden things get serious. And what has happened is you've now bumped into each other's baggage, and the real work and the real beauty of the relationship can start kind of coming into being. That's the 8th house. So this Scorpio season is very much inviting you to look at, you know, what has gone on here in the last 18 months? You know, what kind of thing can you look back on and say, well, that's changed a lot in my relationship? and then just kind of bring a closing to. I mean, this Scorpio season is allowing you to close something that has been kind of brewing away to do with these topics of other people's stuff, in the background. So that's kind of what this Scorpio season is bringing into focus for you.
Yeah, there's some element of, with Mars in there, some action needing to be taken on really making sure your boundaries are clear. There's something in there about that as well. And with this Scorpio season occurring in that 8th house, people with Aries rising, what should they dress up as for Halloween, Jenny?
I know. I think you should dress up as like the most triggering friggin' thing that you can think of that somebody has come out with you with lately, so really just kind of thinking about, the ghoul in the dark, the like real irritation that you want to kind of make fun of, and just go ahead and bring it into the light, like bring it in and have fun with it and experience. It's kind of like the ultimate act of empathy in a funny way. It's like getting to experience this like thing that you think is so frustrating, and like embodying that. So something along those lines. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that there is the 8th house is so deep and so intense, and it brings us to these places where we have to navigate people's baggage that we don't want to navigate. So yes, think about someone in your life that has some huge baggage that you've had to navigate and deal with, and show up with that as your costume. The 8th house is also traditionally thought of as the house of death. So just dress up as a dead person. Be a zombie.
You could go a lot of ways with it, but those are some suggestions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So we're going to go on. Those of you with Taurus rising, this Scorpio season lands right in your 7th house of one-on-one partnerships, relationships. The relationships that are involved in the 7th house are, we think of romantic partners or spouses or business partners, or it's really any one-on-one kind of equal based relationship. So that's where you encounter this need in your life to transform yourself, really, with Scorpio there. It's so funny because you've got Taurus rising. So you as an individual, you want to stay calm and not have a lot of, you don't want your feathers ruffled much. But when it comes to relationship, you allow yourself to go to a lot deeper places. And right now with this Scorpio season, you really want to take action on exploring some of those deeper sides of your relationship that you may not normally, you might normally want to ignore. I don't know. You can also think of it in terms of the past 18 months, what you've learned. How have you learned some of the darker sides of your relationship? That would be either the person you're in relationship with or you in that relationship. There's some depths of that you've been really learning about.
Yeah, and I think it's funny with Taurus rising because it locates that need for it to be spicy and passionate, in your partnership. I mean, there's definitely a need for spice here, and maybe there might be, think about how you deal with conflict with your partner too, because that can give you some clues about, just how that works for you or doesn't work for you. And it also might help you understand there's a vulnerability here too. And I was thinking about some folks I know with this, and it's like there can be a struggle with feeling overly suspicious or kind of thinking things are more mysterious than they are. And really all you're doing is reflecting your own kind of journey with trust. It's not really about the other person. It's really about you and having to work with your own vulnerabilities here. And it does bring up that issue of, where's the trust in your partnership and needing to work with that. So that this is a great opportunity for working with this kind of closing, as you said, Laurie, that 18-month journey as the eclipses have fallen in your first and seventh house for the past 18 months. So there's some really powerful learning that you've gotten about yourself, about your partnership. And this is a great season to work with it, and also dress up as your partner for Halloween, or some aspect of your partner that you've had the pleasure of seeing in the last 18 months.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about as you're talking about that is that, with Mars in there, it's time to take action on something that you've learned. There may be an element here that is really about you allowing yourself to finally accept your partner's need for privacy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's a key here is how do you allow yourself to be in relationship with a person who requires privacy while you have this suspicious nature? You got to work with that. You got to find the trust to allow them their own privacy. And I love that idea. What are you going to dress up for as Halloween? Dress up as your most suspicious nature in relationship. Allow that to transform it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It could be a really important time, Taurus rising.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to folks with Gemini rising.
Yeah, so with Gemini rising, it brings the Scorpio season into your sixth house. The sixth house is your routines, your practices, your self-care, the way that you do the things you need to do to keep yourself going, like you go and get a massage, you work out after work, you pack a healthy lunch to go to work with you, those kinds of things. And it's interesting having Scorpio here because it really kind of brings in this intensity to your need for whatever those practices are. Maybe it's that you need to practice martial arts as one of your kind of self-care practices. I mean, that would be actually a great fit for this because it allows you to work with the combative nature of Scorpio, and meantime, keep yourself healthy. So, I mean, part of what you want to think about here is, what is your vulnerability here? Because it does deal with health. So you just also want to think about that piece of it. Like, what is the vulnerability around your self-care? Do you struggle with doing it? Do you overdo it? These are some of the things you want to look at and really come to grips with, but what's the healthiest thing for me to do in this moment? Because with Mars, there's an action that needs to be taken during the Scorpio season. So I think those are some of the issues on the table. Yeah, what would you like to add to that?
I don't know. Something's bubbling in the back of my mind around that issue of privacy.
Yeah.
There's some way in which how you care for yourself is held as a very private thing. And yeah, I like that you brought up, the need to take action on your health, the need to, it's interesting. So what have you want to think about what you've learned over this past 18 months and how you are working with that energy now. How have you seen a transformation over this period of time? How has your approach to your healthcare changed? And how do you need to tweak it while you've got the addition of Mars in there, requiring you to take action on that area at this point in time? There's something in that.
I was thinking about, sorry, I was just thinking about how you need to manage your need for intensity here. It's something about that.
Yeah. How is intensity, that intensity of Scorpio, and the ability to go into an emotionally intense place when you are doing your activities of the sixth house? I'm thinking of a few people that I know that have that Gemini rising, and how important those day-to-day routines of their life are. And they may not seem to an outsider to be particularly intense and powerful, but from the inside, that there's a tapping into a vulnerability. Maybe there's a vulnerability within the person around their health that they feel so intensely that they have to take these actions. So there's some action there. Now, unless you have something else to say about it, we need to think about what this person is going to dress up for at Halloween.
Well, I think you have to dress up as a zombie massage therapist. I mean, what else?
Well,
you got a really good one. What is yours?
The first one, when we were talking about it earlier, I said, well, I think Gemini rising people should dress up as a syringe. Something around your health care. Hopefully syringes don't really have too much to do with your health care, but that was just an odd idea that came to me. Maybe you could dress up as a dietitian, an evil dietitian with a big syringe.
There's a lot of costume ideas here, but either way, you want to take that moment and just enjoy like what is the darker aspect of all of this that would be cathartic for you to dress up as. That's what we're going for. I mean, Halloween brings up this catharsis, this ability to show the thing that should be hidden. Now you get to bring it to the light and you get to say, you know what, it's Halloween, so I can display this. And I think there's something powerful that could be extremely good for your health, I might add. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's very important for your health that you dress up in an extreme way. Okay, we're going to move on now to those of you with Cancer rising. And this puts the Scorpio season, the focus of the Scorpio season, into your fifth house. So first of all, we want to think about what is the fifth house about. The fifth house, I love the fifth house. The fifth house is really the house of creativity, of playfulness. It's the house of risk taking. It's also the house of children and love affairs. It's where we give of ourselves. If we're taking risks, it's because it's done for the love of it, right? You don't take a risk because you dread taking a risk. You take a risk because you just have that spark. And the fifth house is very much about that spark of creativity, that spark of taking action. So when creativity is held in the area where Scorpio is, what does your creativity look like? It's got to have a dark edge. It's got to have an edge where, that whole catharsis, your creativity has to be somehow a catalyst for change in you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the real important thing. You want to think about what actions are you going to bring to your creative nature that is going to catalyze your movement forward. Think about what the last 18 months have taught you about your creativity or how you give of yourself, and taking action to support that as we move forward.
I think it's interesting that Cancer rising, it's like you have Cancer rising, it's like your gift to the world is to help people get to the depths of whatever motivates them, whatever drives them. And this is not always the most welcome gift, because you're really, Scorpio kind of has X-ray vision, so you can really see into issues in a way wherever you have Scorpio. But in Cancer rising's case, it's more like your gift to the world is the X-ray vision, the ability to see down into those more vulnerable places. And I think if you have Cancer rising, you need to also have an understanding of your own vulnerability as you give of yourself, because they're very tightly entwined, where you have this powerful gift, but what comes with that gift is vulnerability. And with the kind of privacy themes of Scorpio, there's a challenge around not feeling too exposed, I would say, in how you give of yourself. So there's a dance, again, that whole thing we talked about of like what's secret and what's private. It's like, there's a dance of how you give of yourself, showing your vulnerability, but then needing some privacy here. So it's quite a powerful placement. And again, it's not always, people don't always like you to be able to look into their emotional stuff. So there's, you know, you have to tread lightly. And this Scorpio season is giving you the opportunity to kind of evaluate that and what has changed in the way that you do this in the last 18 months. You know, what has shifted? You know, what intense creative pursuit can you pour yourself into, and take advantage of that during the season, because you're really trying to bring that to, you know, there's a closure here about some process you've been in. So yeah, a lot going on, I think, in this fifth house.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's perfect for, you know, the whole idea of what are you going to dress up as for Halloween? What are you going to do for Halloween? It's like, well, geez, you're going to get creative here. And, you know, it is interesting because there's that vulnerability, like you said, around your creativity.
Yeah.
And so you really have to kind of pull up the stops of having the courage to show your most creative side. But what are you going to dress up as? Oh, well, that house, you might want to dress up as a child.
An evil child like Chucky.
An evil child. I like that idea. An evil child.
Yeah. I was thinking of like a motorcycle zombie, because, you know, you've got the risk taking of the, you know, and then just bring it up the you know, or the motorcycle vampire, because it's the, you know, usually you're giving of yourself and then you're going to display this, like what you're taking, you know. I don't know, just
I like that. A motorcycle zombie, a baby zombie.
Oh my god, baby zombie. All right, let us know what you dress up as. I hope you do, because it's going to be very cathartic if you do. Go for it.
Exactly. Okay. Now we're going to move on to those of you with Leo rising.
Oh yeah. So Leo rising, this brings this whole Scorpio energy down into your fourth house. So the fourth house is interesting because in a lot of ways, it's actually the most private house in the chart in a certain way, because it pertains to home and family and kind of like, you know, your sanctuary that you create and you like, you know, go to, as your place to get anchored and to calm down and, you know, all of these things, you know, I mean, there's more meaning to home than that, but that's really the signification here. There's a big suggestion around emotional stability here, you know, and figuring out how to feel stable at the deepest levels of your personality. And of course, that is mirrored by the home and family you're brought up in, the home and family you live with now. And then there's all the other significations, like your actual house is something being transformed about your actual house that is, I would think, would be jarring during the Scorpio season, but for the better transformation. I mean, those are some of the things that you want to think about. So kind of ask yourself, like, as a Leo rising person, you know, what level is this, at the deepest depths of your being, or is it more about your house changing? You know, the one other signification is ancestry. So that's something else, that maybe, you know, something's coming to light or something has changed in the last 18 months while that eclipse season has been, you know, cruising through your fourth house of home and also your house of profession. But those are some of the things you're really going to want to think about with Leo rising.
Yeah, I love that. You know, just thinking about it as the childhood home, the ancestry. It's like there's something that has been coming to light. And now with Mars in here during Scorpio season, there may be some action that you need to take on what has come to light over this past 18 months of the nodal axis being in that area. So yeah, what are the secrets, or what's the privacy? What privacy do you require at home? What privacy do you hold around your ancestral line? Maybe there's something that you've become aware of in your ancestral line that you really don't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's who you dress up as for Halloween. If you found out within the last 18 months that your ancestors were, you know, I don't know, slave owners, dress up as an evil slave owner. I don't know. Something, you know, there's something in there. dress up as an evil ancestor. We all have an evil ancestor out there, all of us, right? We've all got an
Yeah,
evil.
we're all, yes, connected. You know, the other thing I was thinking about this, Laurie, is that it's funny because as a Leo rising person, you're showing up as a Leo in the world, and then you have this very private home thing. And I think that maybe what you should do is throw a Halloween party, because it's probably not very comfortable for you to have people in your home with Scorpio there. But this is the perfect type of party to embrace and show. And then you kind of get to do this. Hey, you're showing up as a Leo, but you're bringing it into your home, which isn't the most comfortable thing. And then whatever, and then you
Invite,
dress up as the zombie host.
right, and invite all your family members.
Yeah.
Or
And
maybe
make
you
them
could
dress up. You make a rule. You have to have a costume.
right.
That's the rule.
Maybe you dress up as a DNA test.
Oh my God. I love your creativity, Laurie. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
a fruitful time for Leo rising. You know, you really want to investigate that inner world, your inner vulnerability here, and just see where it plays in, and exactly what you said, what you want to take action on.
yeah. Okay. So we're going to move now on to those of you with Virgo rising. So if you have Virgo rising, the Scorpio season is really highlighting your third house. So this is the area of communication. It's the area of kind of the people in your life that you didn't necessarily choose, like your siblings, your neighbors, the person that delivers your mail, or well, I don't know, whoever, those people that are in your immediate environment. So that's the area that we're talking about. So what is the transformative necessity in this area of your life? What have you needed to really dig deeply to understand and to transform yourself in this area? Has it been through your communications? Has it been through your relationships with siblings or others? There's some area there. And you've been through a process for the past 18 months or so of really changing in this area. And now with Mars in here, there's some way in which a particular action is coming forth as necessary. Something,
I was thinking a lot about, you know, you brought it up kind of, but the change in your voice, you know, the idea that, well, you've got a yin, very private sign here in this place where you're supposed to communicate. So there's some way that you've had to flip that inside out and kind of access the bravery of the Mars components of Scorpio and use your voice in a new way. You know, maybe you've had to stand up for something that you never had to before, that has to do with, you know, like you said, your siblings, or, you know, because you don't get to choose those, or an old childhood friend, you know, would be another designation, like somebody that happens to be in your life. You know, so those are some of the things you want to think about. Or, you know, maybe you're finally expressing something that you didn't get to express, you know,
right,
so
because
showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, the vulnerability there. So you're really having to face the vulnerability of speaking your truth to your neighbors or your siblings or anyone, you know, just speaking your truth. That third house is so much about how you use your voice. And with Scorpio there, how you use your voice throughout the course of your life will go through a major transformation, or many. So yeah, there's actions that need to be taken. There's also that privacy issue there.
Yeah, like I think of this, I mean, I know there's like authors out there who are very, very private people, and then but they want to write their memoir. They're private, so they're writing at home by themselves, and then they write this memoir, and suddenly everybody knows their most personal story. I mean, that would be a really good way to think about exactly that issue, where you wanted it to be private, but at the same time, you couldn't help yourself because you got to transform your voice, you know, and out it comes. And so there's something about that I always think though, there's a bravery piece here because you're having to do something, transform something, change something, confront the little deaths we talked about in the beginning of this whole thing, like just letting something go so something new can come. I mean, there's a courage here that has to happen. So, but you've been in that process for, as you're saying, like 18 months during the eclipse cycles. So there's something, this isn't just Scorpio season, this is a closing down of a much longer process, that you can kind of see what comes to light for you.
But
So,
with Mars here now, you have to take action. You have to understand that your voice is a catalyst. You're using your voice as a catalyst.
hell yeah. That's my favorite archetype for Scorpio for sure, the catalyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, your Halloween costume, I think you need to dress up as a one of those like as a book, a fairy tale book from Hans Christian Andersen, where all that gory ass shit is in those stories, So or a spell book. I kind of like that. I like
a spell book. I was thinking a vampire writer, like with a typewriter.
Yeah, or a male person. A male carrier. That's what you have to say these days. Yeah.
Or just, Freddy Krueger, is that the guy? He's going after his sibling.
Oh God. All right.
Or
disclaimer, please sign here. We have no influence on your brain.
Okay.
All right.
Now we'll move on to Libra rising.
Ooh la la. So Libra rising, this is interesting because this puts Scorpio in your second house of self-worth and of things to do with your money and your resources, at the bottom of which always comes down to your self-worth. And it's funny because I think of with Libra rising, again, you have that whole, appearing one way to everybody outside of you, but then you have this intensity, this intense scrutiny and kind of thing going on with Scorpio in your second house, where there's a real depth about how you value yourself, or I should actually reframe that as a real vulnerability about how you value yourself and how, and again, that can pertain to your money and your financial resources. But the thing is what you're getting to see and what you've gotten to see for the past 18 months is how much you have to offer here. You have a huge depth and resourcefulness that is available to you with Scorpio here, that you have so much to offer other people. Your value is of depth and power and transformation and being a catalyst for other people. So those are some of the things that during the Scorpio season, you should look at and kind of ask yourself, like, how have I transformed in this area in these last 18 months? Like, what has shown up? How do I feel about myself? How is my self-esteem at this point? And those are some of the questions, not very easy questions, but this is where you want to direct some of your attention.
It's interesting. I always think about, money, the second house, when we talk about it as relating to money. I think, money and resources are very much just a metaphor for our self-worth.
Yeah.
And but it's easier sometimes to look at our financial situation. It's easier to be clear about that than our self-worth. Self-worth is kind of a fuzzier thing to look at. So if we think about money and resources with Scorpio there, you want to really look at what your vulnerabilities are with your finances, what your how you use your resources as a catalyst. Do you donate money to something just because you have been for 20 years? Think about how you work with your money and resources, because it is so closely connected to your self-worth. If you ignore your money and resources, you're probably ignoring your self-worth as well. So there's a connection there and a vulnerability there.
Yeah,
for sure.
With the power of Mars and Scorpio during the Scorpio season, there's something to take action on in this time frame that is based on whatever your discoveries have been from the past 18 months. There's some process or passage that you've had to kind of make your way through here to do with, again, this self-worth piece and money. But now's the time for action. There's something that's going to come to light that you can take action on. I mean, it's sort of inescapable with Mars going through that house.
And
So
I think there's one other thing I just want to be real clear on when I talk about the issue of finances and self-worth, kind of as a metaphor. That doesn't mean, I just want to be really clear. It does not mean if you've got lots of money, you've got a great self-esteem. And if you don't have any, you don't, it's
no.
not like, it doesn't work like that. I just
Mm-mm.
want to be crystal clear about that.
Yeah, it's just like their mirror reflections, and everybody has their own struggle. And this is not an easy house for anybody, the second house. So everybody, you got your own struggle that you have to go through about how you were valued as a child, and then how that translated to being an adult, and what do you struggle with now that causes you to not be able to stand up for yourself in relationships, and on and on and on. So this is a place of, this is a learning territory in astrology. I mean, the second house is a difficult one to work with, but so necessary, so vital. So,
Absolutely.
and then what are you going to dress up with?
Oh, yeah. Dressing up for Halloween. What are you going to dress up as with that in your second house? Well, a miser.
Yeah.
A miser counting his money with
Yeah.
blood dripping all over them. I don't know.
Like a CEO. Yeah, that could be for sure. We could do
Yeah.
that.
There you have it.
Yeah, I don't know. Or you could almost dress it. Well, it's not very Halloween-y. I had this image of like a Robin Hood ninja.
You could have a Robin Hood zombie.
Oh yeah, like just taking that money and redistributing it. I kind of
Yeah,
like that idea. Yeah.
that's it. A Robin Hood zombie. Okay, have fun
Ninja.
with that costume idea.
All right,
And we're going to move
carrying
on
on.
to those of you with Scorpio rising. Well, clearly, if you have Scorpio rising, Scorpio season is very personal to you. This is all about you. The first house, so Scorpio season focuses on the first house for you, and that first house is just about you. It's how you show up in the world. It's your expression of self. So, if you've got Scorpio rising, you show up in the world with that sense of vulnerability, emotional vulnerability and intensity right on the surface. That's what people see when they encounter you. People often will probably think of you as being a little mysterious and a little deep and maybe a little scary.
Yeah.
It's an interesting placement for sure, but there's such a need, over the past 18 months, like we've been talking about with the eclipses in your first and seventh house over the past 18 months, you've learned an awfully lot about how you show up in the world. And you've probably changed a lot about how you do so. With Scorpio there, it's really over the course of your life, your personality, how you show up in the world has to go through cycles of profound change. And this period of Scorpio rising is once again a period of time in your life where you have the opportunity to look at how you show up in the world, how others see you, and take action on any changes you might want to make in that area.
Yeah, it's a powerful time. I mean, that first house is really the most powerful house in the whole system, but it's also kind of the hardest one to see. It might be something you haven't really gotten about yourself very clearly. But what it does speak to a person who, part of your whole life purpose is going into those depths, is being a catalyst for other people, is being willing to investigate, deeper topics that the rest of society may want to sweep under the rug or whatever. I mean, it speaks to an interest into the sort of the occult, or the hidden layers of things. So that there's an overall life direction here, and it could be that in these last 18 months, like that, your life is pivoting into a new direction that maybe you hadn't expected. There's some kind of transformative thing that is going to allow you to step into that role of being someone who transforms, who helps other people transform, moves in that whole direction. So there's something here And as you said, the mysteriousness. Another way that Scorpio rising can manifest is this. There can be a lot of defensiveness here because there's a little bit of like, whoa, I don't want you to look that deep into my stuff, because it's your most vulnerable stuff is right on your sleeve, as you walk around. So you may be a person who throws a vibe because you need to kind of protect some of that. It's not a very easy, Scorpio does not want to be in that bright, shiny light, right at the top. It wants to be hidden away. So there's an innate tension with a Scorpio rising chart of struggling with that piece because it's what people get hit with. So
Yeah.
Very interested to hear what stories people might have of these last 18 months during these eclipse season here.
Yeah. Leave us a message. I hope everybody leaves us a message on what they dress up as for Halloween. So for those of you with Scorpio rising, we've been doing this with all the rising signs. You are going to want to dress up for Halloween as the deepest, scariest part of who you are. You're going to want to just show it up.
And walk into that room with whatever it is. I don't have any other suggestions because I agree. This is like an opportunity to get to kind of caricature a part of yourself that you are normally scared to reveal. So if you have a secret interest in the occult, well, you better show up as a wizard, as a dark wizard. Like if you, those are the kinds of things you want to think about. But I'm have fun with it. It's cathartic.
If you secretly want to be a detective, show up as a zombie detective. Big magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Looking into everybody else.
Into their souls.
Into their souls.
All right.
All right.
All right.
We'll go on to those of you with Sagittarius rising.
Oh, Sagittarius rising, this just puts, Scorpio is in this, place in your life that is completely hidden away from the scenes. This is like your private retreat is where you happen to have Scorpio. So this Scorpio season really is speaking to those things that are just hidden away in the depths of your psychology, these hidden patterns that maybe you've had to really tangle with because these last 18 months, there have been eclipses cruising through your 12th and your 6th house. So there's something that has come to light in the way that like kind of those hidden patterns that trip you up a little bit. And with Scorpio, it sure isn't easy to understand what those are, but I can tell you, you can identify them because they're probably pretty intense. Mm-hmm. It's like those intense feelings that come up that you're not sure how to deal with. Those are some of the ways that those deep, deep, deep patterns will reveal themselves. So really reflect on what has gone on for you, Sagittarius rising, in these last 18 months that has shown you through your relationships and so on, or maybe through some health issues, what is going on here for you that you get to now kind of bring an ending to. You can kind of close down with the Scorpio season. So, yeah.
Yeah,
tricky.
Yeah, that 12th house, having Scorpio in that 12th house, there's such a depth of intensity within your inner unconscious. You can think of the 12th house as those unconscious patterns that kind of run you from behind the scenes. Exactly. And you can also think of it as your spiritual understanding. There's different ways you can think about that 12th house, but it's sort of things that are being run behind the scenes that you aren't fully aware of, that you have to really dig deep to understand. And yeah, you probably have some deep interest in psychology. And this is a time during Scorpio season, you can really get out that magnifying glass and look deeply into your own inner patterns. And with Mars in there right now, it's a real opportunity for you to find some ways in there to get some clarity, to kind of be your own inner catalyst, to dig around in those hidden patterns, to understand something in order to move forward as the eclipses move to the next placement. So taking some action. I don't know. What's the action? I don't know. Get a new therapist, read a book that will open up some understanding, some psychological or spiritual understanding. And then the big question, what are you going to dress up for at Halloween? At Halloween. I can't quite talk. What's this person going to dress up as, Jenny? You have any thoughts?
Well, I was having some other thoughts about what this might mean before
Okay, I went too fast to that, didn't
yes.
I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what I wanted to add to this is what I was recognizing is that with Scorpio in your 12th house, that you have quite a bit of resiliency of dealing with other people's suffering. I mean, you're that person who knows how to show up for somebody who is suffering. And and there's something, because Scorpio, again, it's linked to Mars, so there's this whole piece about the courage that has to come into play when you're working with vulnerability. And I just see this as a person who knows how to just approach someone who is really suffering and be just rock solid for them here with that fixed water. That's kind of, because we focus on the internal piece here, but the external piece, that's what came to mind, or being this kind of catalytic energy for somebody going through the intense things of life that we all end up having to deal with one way or another. And it could be somebody else going through a mental break as well, like something like that, because there's mental health issues in the 12th. I mean, yes, it could be your own, but what I'm seeing here is this idea of like being able to receive and work with somebody else's deep, difficult struggle. So that's kind of where I went. I wasn't in costume land yet.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is absolutely true and so important. People with Sagittarius rising do know how to hold the suffering of that depth of suffering for other people, and that's I'm so glad you brought that up. So can we talk about costumes now?
Yeah, so something you said that made me think of it. So anyway, yes, what is the costume going to be?
The evil zombie therapist?
Yeah. Yep, maybe that could be. I had a kind of a, my thought was kind of macabre. I don't know.
Okay, come on, let's hear it.
Well, I had some just sort of, I was thinking about dressing up as like a corpse on a gurney.
Ooh, I like that.
It's pretty dark, but I don't know why. I don't know. It's sort of like in some ways, the 12th house speaks of endings. So it's kind of like just embracing it and and showing up as an ending and allowing that to come to light and letting that be part of your Halloween. So
I like that. I like that idea. And if that's a little too much for you, Sagittarius rising,
sorry,
go for the zombie therapist or the zombie tarot reader or something like that. A zombie tarot reader would be a really fun costume to.
Oh, that would be a good one.
I like that.
Well, yeah, there's probably some other things in there, but yeah, I was thinking as a Sagittarius rising person, like you're kind of embodying the explorer. So it's like dressing up as an explorer of the past who is no longer with us,
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we're going to move on.
All right, moving on.
We're going to move on to those with Capricorn rising. So for those of you with Capricorn rising, this Scorpio season is really focusing your attention on the 11th house. Now, the 11th house we think of as, first and foremost, it's community. And when we talk about community in this regard, we're not talking about a group of your best friends. We're talking about kind of a larger picture of like-minded others that support you to what your needs are. Back in the day, the 11th house was really talked about as our hopes and desires for the future. And it really is the people that support us to that. It's really important. The 11th house is important to think about as, how we receive from others. So with Scorpio in this house and so highlighted here, you want to really think about what are your vulnerabilities in terms of your ability to receive from others? What's your vulnerability there? And what have you learned over this past 18 months with the nodes between the 11th and the 5th? What have you learned about the deeper side, the kind of the underbelly of any communities that you might be involved with? Now think about that vulnerability, what you've discovered with Mars here at this point. Is there some way in which you have to take action to change the community support or allow community support in, or there's something in that?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like thinking about Capricorn rising and yes, this 11th house and having Scorpio in it. I mean, again, it always depends on your natal chart. So I don't want to overspeak or overstate, but it really does speak to some kind of intensity about what you need from community. Like it really suggests someone who you really need that community level of interaction. And again, as Laurie's saying, like this is not an intimate need. This isn't, I mean, it could be, I mean, it could have to do with sex, but it is not an intimate need in terms of like, you know, community being close friends. That's not necessarily it at all. Like it's more like what groups of people do you need to be able to interact with to kind of understand this scorpionic part of yourself, this deep part, the part that are maybe, you know, is hidden away in the shadows a little bit that you've been afraid to welcome in and allow, you know? So there's some intensity here with Capricorn rising about whatever those community states are. I mean, this isn't just like, hey, let's, you know, hang out and have brunch. I mean, there's much more intensity here that's needed. So I think of this as people being members of some pretty interesting groups of people, you know, and it might be that in the last 18 months, you've had this massive discovery process about who you are in groups and what kind of community you need to satisfy that intensity and that depth that you have that Scorpio represents. So there's something in here, and with Mars there, it's the time to take action. There's some action that is going to be taken in this area, you know, that has to do with all these topics. So interesting time, you know, I think it's an interesting time to see how you work with your community.
Yeah, the community, your community involvement can't be something light and fluffy. You know, it's not about going to a paint and sip. You know, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
You're going to bring an awful lot of intensity to that. You know,
yeah, well, at least has to be a nude model at the paint and sip, at the very least.
At the very least, hopefully with some real extremeness around it, not just a pretty little picture. So yeah, I mean, there has to be something really intense and really, you know, your relationship to community over the course of your life with Scorpio there is transformed at various periods of time. And with Mars in there right now, you have the opportunity to really transform your connection with community, your expectations, what you need in community is, yeah, it's important to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to talk about costume yet?
Yes, I'm ready to talk about costume. I don't know. What are your thoughts about here? I'm like, you have to dress up as a whole community. I guess it's dress up is like, what is your most out there community that you think wouldn't be socially acceptable? And then put a little Halloween twist on that too. You know, I mean, you could come up with some good stuff, but I'm not going to say here. I'm going to let your imagination go with it.
What I think is you need to enroll your community in dressing up together. Ooh. You need to be a whole band of zombies. You know, it can't be just you on your own. You have to have your community, or, you know, maybe the party that you go to is a part of your community. So yeah,
I like the idea of having to dress up as like a whole community scene. You know, I like that. Like, you know, that could get really interesting. So I if anyone has a good one, please write a note. I want to hear it.
Yeah, please share.
All right.
Please share. Okay, let's move on to those of you with Aquarius rising.
Oh, so those of you with Aquarius rising, the Scorpio season is firmly happening in your 10th house. Your 10th house refers to your profession, or your career or the way that you show up in public. So if you don't have a particular profession, not to worry, it doesn't matter. This is where you show up in the public eye. What is interesting is that implies a great deal of intensity to do with whatever your profession is. There's some transformational aspect or catalytic aspect to your career. There's some way in which you work with people, most likely, that is very, has this depth to it and is very sort of transformative. Those are some of the topics that you might bring up. There might be, I also think this could be, another example would be like, this could be the placement a surgeon might have, because Scorpio has that ability to cut with precision down in beneath the layers. And that would certainly speak to somebody that was a surgeon. I bring it up sort of metaphorically, think about that kind of surgical aspect in whatever your career is, because there's a lot of careers that could have that component to it on an emotional level. So anyway, what you really want to think about is these past 18 months when we've had an eclipse cycle going through your 10th house and your 4th house as well. But what has come to light in this time? Like, what has changed about your career? Like, what have you added, or what have you let go of? Like, what is the transformation that has had to do with this space that you show up the most in the public eye? I guess the other piece I'll just add real quick here is just, there's also vulnerability here. There's vulnerability to do with your work. There's some way in which you may not always want to just, tell everybody what you do. There's a little bit of a vulnerability and a privacy attached to this, which is so ironic because you're really showing up in the public, whether you like it or not. So yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting having Scorpio in that 10th house. I like that you brought up the surgeon and the cutting. There's also, images that come to my mind around Scorpio in the 10th house is, a detective or, something along those lines where there's a need to go into really deep depths in terms of your career or your reputation. You might have a very dark reputation. You might have a reputation of digging really deep for something. You might work. I had a client once who had Aquarius rising, and I thought it was so funny. She worked with, water systems.
Ooh. Yeah,
like sewer systems.
Yeah.
And it was just really interesting. And do you think she wanted to go tell all her friends that she managed this huge sewer system? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But so there is a way in which your reputation or your career makes you feel a little vulnerable because there's something about it that you would rather keep private. There's something so deep in where you go with that, and boy, working
deep.
Working in that kind of field, talk about a metaphorical idea. What is it that you're really digging up in your reputation, in your career, and where's the privacy? And so there's a lot there to think about. And with Mars, like you said, Jenny, there's some action that you need to take. There's some way in which your career and your reputation has to embody being a catalyst from that point, from that place of your career. How do you really make a big difference? And how is your career a place of inner transformation for yourself?
Yeah, it's funny, at all of those careers we mentioned, the surgeon, the detective, and even working in the system and sewer system and like feeling this level of discomfort. But the great part about this that's so interesting is you're pairing that with the impassive nature of Aquarius. So it's a perfect, I think about even, with these like true crime series and stuff, you think about the detective who can go deep, but can also appear impassive when they're talking to, maybe somebody they suspect of being a murderer or whatever, or the surgeon being impassive face, like when they're confronted with having to, do some surgical procedure on you, but it does really tie well together with having that Aquarius rising, because it gives you, Aquarius kind of has that more aloof nature to it. So it's pretty fascinating. This is a good thing to think about doing natal chart readings. And again, those of you who are listening, it all depends on your natal chart, like what is lit up in your chart that this Scorpio season is impacting. I can't state that enough. Like, everybody's got different lives, and it really, if you have sensitive points here, it's going to show up more, or show up in a completely different way than somebody who doesn't, So think about that, include that in your thinking, ask yourself what's gone on in your career, and figure out what the hell you're going to be for Halloween.
Right. What's this person going to be for Halloween? A sewer worker?
Sure. You got all kinds of options. As long as it's like a ninja sewer worker. Or like where you're popping down in the sewer so you can pop up and do something else and be a catalyst somewhere else.
You could be a zombie CEO.
Or you could be doing surgery on yourself. That could be,
Oh,
you could do that with a costume.
Oh, I like that. I like that idea. Yeah. Be a surgeon on yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Have fun. Leave us messages below. Tell us what you're going to dress up as for Halloween. And now we're going to move on to those of you with Pisces rising. So if you have Pisces rising, Scorpio season, the energy is really focused here in your ninth house. The ninth, I love the ninth house. It's such an interesting area. The ninth house is really where we expand our understanding of the world. We can think of it simply as our world view. We can think of it as, it incorporates all the things in our lives that create our worldview, our understanding of the bigger picture of the world. So it holds things like religion, travel, education, all these things that open our minds to our worldview. Even politics can be in here. So with Pisces rising, you've got Scorpio in this area of your life. So there's, oh my goodness, it's so easy to, your worldview tends to, you may have a little suspicion here. There's a lot of intensity. Your worldview is not a simple place. Your worldview is a place of a great deal of intensity. You might go to kind of dark places there. But it's also an area with Scorpio there that throughout the course of your life at different times, your worldview is really transformed, really changed. You might follow a lot of rabbit holes in terms of your worldview. You might go into all kinds of conspiracy theories or cults, but there's some intensity there. At any rate, there's a lot of intensity in your worldview, and that's where your worldview has really gone through a lot of change over the last 18 months or so. And with Mars now in here with the sun, it's really a time of taking action on the changes that have happened in order to move forward. There's some, like a lot's been going on, but now you take an action that kind of ties it up and ties it together in some way.
Yeah. I really like all the things you brought up about that worldview, because I was thinking like one of the things that you probably need to think about with Pisces rising is kind of to evaluate, like, do I carry around a very suspicious type of attitude as I experience things that I'm not comfortable with or that I'm not used to? Or are you carrying around more of a almost like a curiosity where you want to let those things transform you so that you can actually then sort of pay that forwards and be this catalyst in your own worldview? And I think that's some of the things, I could see the potential here for being, yes, suspicious and wanting to just kind of blame outside of yourself all the time on this. I know this is kind of negative, but I just think it's an important kind of marker to look at, versus being this incredible source of wisdom, of transformative catalytic wisdom, where you are taking the the emotional realities of people and being able to incorporate those into your worldview and really seeing that and understanding that. So I could see this being quite challenging, but incredibly fruitful for being a person, a Pisces rising person, who you are here to teach people about suffering, you know, and about helping them deal with it. And so there's something in all of that, which is very interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I think it's interesting. As you were saying that, I'm thinking, well, you know, this is kind of the trajectory of our lives. We start out, you know, wherever Scorpio is, we kind of start out with the suspicion and the darkness. And over the course of time, we embrace through transformation, which Scorpio, wherever Scorpio is, we are going to go through major transformations in the course of our lives. And as we get older, we're able to see beyond the suspicion and see into the deeper sides of it. And that allows us to be a catalyst with our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And I just think, you know, with a water sign on the ascendant, and then we're looking at a water sign in the ninth house, it's like there is a need for just the understanding of your own vulnerability, and that you need boundaries, and you need to protect yourself. Like there has to be a little bit of defensiveness in here too, to allow yourself the privacy to grow through these processes, you know, kind of links everything together. But that's something to think about, because Pisces rising, you are just taking everything in. So a big learning for you is how to have some boundaries, so that, and really being able to retreat at times and restore and rejuvenate, so that you can be in this more transformative space of the ninth house. So there's a lot of themes here, a lot of different things tied up together. And certainly the last 18 months can really shed some light on what process have you been in the last 18 months? What has changed during the eclipse, the eclipses that have been in Scorpio and Taurus for those past 18 months? And then what do you need to take action on right now? Because you've got Mars in that house, and you're going to kind of close down this big chapter of change that you've been through. So, and again, depends on your natal chart. If you've got sensitive points, it's going to impact you one way, versus if you don't, other things will get your attention in a different way later.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So one last thing we have to talk about. What is this person going to dress up as for Halloween?
Well, I'm going to steal one of my other ideas from earlier and invite you to dress up as a dead adventurer, like somebody who traveled and explored the world, you know, from the past, you know, like Shackleton, or, you know, so
I thought a zombie travel agent would be fun.
Ooh, or a zombie lawyer, you know, which there's some really easy ones in the media you could pick from that that are already zombies. That's my opinion, but whatever.
I also thought, but this really dates me. This really dates me, because I don't think such a thing exists anymore, and it shouldn't. But I thought a zombie stewardess.
Oh.
You know, there's no such thing as stewardesses anymore.
Now you're a flight attendant.
Now they're flight attendants.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could, since stewardesses can't exist anymore, thank goodness. I could go on a whole little conversation about that. I will resist it. But a zombie flight attendant, a zombie travel agent, something like that. Well, I like your lawyer idea. There are some good.
I know you don't even have to have much of an imagination for that. Anyway, all right.
There we go.
Well, this is great. Thank you very much.
Great. Leave us a note. Tell us what you dress up as, and enjoy Scorpio season. Oh my God, Jenny, I've had so much fun making this video with you today.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.